The first question, Olive wants to be an electrical engineer when she grows up. Which component of integrated science should Olive be interested in? So in this case, for Olive to be an electrical engineer, she should be interested in a component of integrated science known as physics. Physics, we define it as the study of matter and its relation to energy. So in this case, electrical engineer, which deals with electricity, circuit, electromagnetism, and energy. And in this case, all these topics are under physics. So understanding these principles is essential for designing and working with the electrical systems. Now, since we are revising, it's very important for us also to discuss other components of integrated science. And another component that we have of integrated science apart from physics is chemistry. And chemistry focuses on matter, its properties, reactions, and composition. We also have another one called biology, and this one studies living things, life processes, and ecosystems. And then another one that we have is earth science, and this one covers geology, weather, climate, and the structure of the earth. And then the last one that we have is environmental science, which examines the interaction between humans and the environment. During a science experiment in a laboratory, a learner got a burn on the hand. Describe the first aid that should have been given to the learner. So if you get a burn on a hand, the first aid that should be given to you is that you have to cool the burn immediately. You have to cool the burn immediately, and you do this by placing the affected hand under cold running water for about 10 to 15 minutes. And the purpose of doing this is to reduce heat, pain, and also prevent further tissue damages. So in this case, if you get a burn, like you can see on the screen, you place your hand under a tap which has cold running water. You can see the water here, and you place it there for about 15 minutes. This one helps to reduce heat, pain, and also prevent further tissue damages. Then the second first aid that should be taken is to apply a suitable burn ointment. In this case, you can place something like an antiseptic or a soothing cream, and you do it gently on the affected area, and this one helps to prevent infection and also promote healing. Then the third one that you should do is to cover the burn, and you do this with using a clean, dry, and non-stick dressing cloth to protect it from germs. A group of learners carried out an experiment in the laboratory to investigate what happens to ice when being heated for some time. So here learners have ice and they need to heat it for some time. So here they have even to record some time. Then name 2 scientific skills the learner need to have developed to make the correct observation. So here the first skill that the learner must have developed is observation skill. Here the learner need to carefully watch what happens to ice as it's being heated. Here the ice might melt, then after melting it might boil, and even boiling it has to go into steam. So the learner must be aware of making correct observation. The second skill that the learner must have is recording data. Here they must write down the changes in temperature and the state. It is changing, the temperature is changing from 2 degrees Celsius to 3, or the state is changing from solid to liquid. The learner must be able to record that data accurately. Then another skill that the learner must have is measuring skill. They need to measure the time. Remember here they are heating for some time, so the learner must be able to measure the time and even the temperature change accurately for them to understand the process. Then the fourth skill that they must have is what we call predicting skill, which sometimes we call formulation of hypothesis. Here, the learner must be able to anticipate what happens next based on prior knowledge. For example, if you have ice, then the learner must be able to predict that if you heat it, it changes to liquid. And if you have a liquid, the learner should be able to predict that if you heat the liquid, the liquid is going to change to gaseous state. So they must have predicting skills. Then another skill is interpreting data. The diagram below was drawn by a learner during a lesson on classifying types of mixtures. So here you can see we have a glass container, liquid C at the top and then liquid D below. Then the first question is identify the type of mixture. So for us to identify the type of mixture here, we have to look at the distribution of particles of these two substances. And we can see clearly that the substances are not, or the particles of these substances are not evenly distributed because they form distinct layers. And therefore the type of mixture where particles form distinct layers is what we call heterogeneous mixture. In heterogeneous mixture, the components are not uniformly distributed and therefore they form distinct layers, as you can see in C and liquid D. Then question B, describe how the liquid in this mixture can be separated. Now here we can separate these two liquids in two ways, but we're going to discuss one in this case. And the one that we're going to discuss is what we call using a separating funnel. And here you will place liquid D, this is liquid D, and then this is liquid C. And then after you open this tab, you will have your liquid. The liquid D will flow fast due to difference in densities. Now here you use a separating funnel, and then the first step is that you pour the mixture into the separating funnel. Like in this case, you can see you pour these two mixtures here. You will have liquid C at the top, liquid D below due to difference in densities. D is more dense than C. And then allow the liquid to settle into layers. Denser liquid will be at the bottom. So here you can also say this liquid D is more denser. This one is denser. Then another step that you will take is that open the tap. You open this tap to drain the liquid at the bottom. In this case, liquid at the bottom is liquid D. And then you will obtain liquid D in this beaker below here. And then liquid C will remain inside this separating funnel. After you have collected all liquid D, then now you can bring another beaker and also open the tap and collect liquid C. So that's what we call using a separating funnel. Another method that you can use, you can discuss it later, is what we call decantation. Grade 7 learners were provided with the following materials and apparatus in the laboratory. The first thing that they were provided with is a flower petals. Second one is a mortar and pestle. The third one is a beaker. Fourth one is a propanol. Then the fifth one is a filter paper with a funnel. Then the first question is, describe how the learners would use the materials and apparatus to prepare the acid-base indicator. So in this case, the first step that they could have taken is to take the mortar and pestle. In this case, you can see here, we have this what we call a pestle. This wider one, we call it a mortar. Then these are flowers. So they take the mortar and pestle and they crush the flower petals. So in this case, the first step is to crush the flower petals using a mortar and a pestle. And the aim of doing this is to release a pigment which is sensitive to pH, which we call anthocyanin. Then the second step is to extract the pigment using propanol. In this case, what you do after crushing, then you transfer the crushed petals into a beaker and then add propanols, which is an organic solvent. When we talk about organic solvent, we are talking of a solvent which is different from water, which we call a non-polar. A solvent which can dissolve colors and pigments. Remember, water cannot dissolve colors because it's polar. It has positive charge and negative charge. So in this case, you add propanol because it's an organic solvent, and this one, it will dissolve the pigment which we have called anthocyanin from the petals. And then the third step that you make is to filter. You filter the mixture. You pour the mixture through the funnel line with a filter paper into another beaker. This one is going to separate the solid petals which you will obtain as residue from the colored solution, and then you will remain with the pigment inside the beaker as a filtrate. Then the last one that you do is to collect the filtrate. Now the filtrate is the one which will penetrate the filter paper. Once you collect it, now you will use it as an acid-base indicator. And this acid-base indicator can show different colors when you place it under different substances with different pH. Learners observed an animation of the process of implantation in human beings. A. Describe the process of implantation as observed in the animation. So in this case, whatever they observed is after the process of fertilization at the fallopian tube, the zygote or the fertilized egg attached itself into the uterus walls. Like in this case, fertilization took place here at the fallopian tube. This is what we call a fallopian tube. Then after that, they observed this fertilized egg moving and being attached here in the uterus wall. This is what we call a uterus. So this is what they observed. This fertilized egg, which we call a zygote, being attached at this uterus wall. Question B, name a process that must occur just before implantation can take place. So we have just mentioned it. At this fallopian tube, whatever happened there was fertilization, where the sperm met with the ova, and then after that they moved to be attached in the uterus wall. So the process that must occur before implantation is what we call fertilization, which we define as a process where a sperm cell from the male unites with the egg cell, from which we call the ovum, from the female, to form a new single cell called a zygote. And you can see it here. If you have sperms and then they meet with this ovum, this a sperm, they will form what we call a zygote, and this is what we call a fertilization. The diagram below represents a section of human skin with parts labeled E and F. So you can see here we have part E and then we have part F. Then the first question, name the part labeled F. This part labeled F here is what we call a dermis. A dermis. And above it we have what we call epidermis, and below it we have what we call hypodermis. So in this case, the one which is labeled at the middle is what we call a dermis. Then B, state the function of the part labeled E. This part labeled E here, we call it a pore. And the function of this pore is that it helps in temperature regulation and also excretion of waste, that is water and salt products from the body. During a lesson on properties of magnets, Alana brought a bar magnet close to iron filings. The magnet attracted the iron filings as shown below. So in this case, we have this one here. These are magnet. These are magnet, and then these are iron filings. These are magnetic materials. Now the first question is, identify the part of the magnet that attracted most of the iron filings. Now in this case, what you need to know, the force of attraction of a magnet is greatest at the poles or at the ends of the magnet. So in this case, the part of the magnet which attracted most of the iron filings is the ends of a bar magnet, and in this case we call those ends poles. But in this case you can still write north pole, because north pole of a magnet is indicated by red. And if you cannot see the red clearly, if it's black and white, then you can say either north pole or you can say south pole. But in this case we have a north pole, or you can simply say the ends of a bar magnet, because attraction of a magnet is greatest at the poles. Now B, give a reason for your answer above. Now in this case we can simply say the magnetic force is strongest at the poles of a magnet, so more iron filings are attracted there. The picture below shows a setup used by grade 7 learners to classify materials as either magnetic and non-magnetic materials. So here we have aluminum foil, we have a pencil, we have a nail, we have a safety pin, and of course we have a bar magnet with north pole and south pole. Then before we proceed further, it's very important for us to distinguish between these two materials, magnetic and non-magnetic. Magnetic materials, we define them as materials that can be attracted by a magnet. Materials that can be attracted by a magnet, and these materials must be made of cobalt, iron, steel. So another material which does not include this list, then it's a non-magnetic. Then for non-magnetic material, we define them as materials which cannot be attracted by a magnet. And the list of these materials is more than what we expect, because if they are not cobalt, iron and steel, then those materials can never be attracted by a magnet. So in this case, let's look at the options that we have here. This one, aluminum foil, is not among cobalt, iron and steel, so this one is non-magnetic, so it cannot be attracted by a magnet. We have a nail here, and nails are made of iron. This one is magnetic because iron is part of materials which are magnetic materials. Then we have a pin. Pins are made of either steel or iron, so this one is also magnetic. Then we have a pencil. A pencil is made of this black part is for graphite, and then the other one is wood, so this one is also non-magnetic because we only have carbon and wood. Then of course a magnet is a material that can attract magnetic materials. So the question is, identify two materials which cannot or which will not be attracted when the magnet's brought close to it. So in this case, the material which cannot be attracted by a magnet, we call them non-magnetic materials. And in this case, we have said the first one that we have is aluminum foil. The second one that we have in this list is what we call a pencil. So here, the first one is pencil, and then the second one is aluminum foil. The rest can be attracted by a magnet. We have safety pin, we have a nail, because they are magnetic materials. A grade 7 learner used the simple electric circuit in the picture below to identify materials that are non-conductors of electricity. The materials used were copper coin, so in this case they used copper coin, they used metallic spoon, they used sisal thread, and also plastic ruler. Then in this case, these materials were placed on this gap that I've indicated red here. So if the bulb will go on, then it means that material is a good conductor. So now identify two materials that will not make the bulb to light when connected in the gap. So in this case, if you connect a material which is a conductor in this gap, the bulb will go on. If you connect a material which is not a good conductor or which is a non-conductor, the bulb will not go on. Now let's look at the material that we've been given. Copper coin. Copper is a metal, and all metals are good conductors of electricity, so this one the bulb will go on. Then metallic spoon. Metallic, we have said all metals are good conductors, so this one is also a conductor, so this one if you put it here, the bulb will also go on. Sisal thread, this is a non-metal, and a non-metal is a non-conductor, therefore in this case this one will not conduct. Plastic ruler, this one plastic is a non-metal, therefore it means it's a non-conductor. So therefore in this case, the materials which the bulb will not go on, the first one is a sisal thread, which is a non-metal, also a non-conductor, and also a plastic ruler, which is a non-metal and also a non-conductor. During a practical lesson, grade 7 learners tested the pH of 5 substances, Q, Z, M, N, and K, using a universal indicator. Classify the substances as strong acids, weak acids, neutral, weak base, or a strong base. So in this case, we have the first column for substance, then we have the pH value, then we have classification. And on this side of classification, we are going to classify either is a strong acid, a weak acid, a neutral substances, a weak base, or a strong base. So the first one, Q, has a pH of 8. Now I have introduced a pH scale down here. So where we have a pH value of 8 here, this one is a weak base. So here we say this is a weak base. Then the second one, that is Z, has a pH value of 1. If we look at our universal indicator pH chart down here, for a pH of 1, this one is a strong acid. So here we say this is a strong acid. And then M, we have a pH value of 7. When we look at the pH value of 7 on this scale, it is neutral. So here we say this substance is neutral. And then N, we have a pH value of 6. When you look at the pH value of 6 on this chart, it is under weak acid. So here we say these are weak acid. And then now K, we have a pH value of 13. And if you look at this chart, the pH value of 13 is for strong bases. So here we say these are strong base. So from 1 to 2, we have strong acids. From 3 to 6, we have weak acids. For pH value 7, it's a neutral substances. And from the pH value of 8 to 11, those are weak bases. And then finally, from pH value of 12 to 14, those are strong bases. Grade 7 learners drew the following urinary system on the board during a science lesson. So in this case, identify the part labeled 1, 2, 3. So here we are supposed to identify this part here, 1, 2, and 3. Now the part labeled 1 is what we call the right kidney. So this one here is a right kidney. Then the part labeled 2 is what we call a ureter. This one here is a ureter. Then the part labeled 3 is what we call a urinary bladder. So this one is a urinary bladder. Then the rest of the parts, we can have them here. We have the renal vein, we have the urethra, we have the left kidney, we have the renal artery, the aorta, and many other parts. But in this case, we are supposed to respond to part 1, 2, and 3, which is the right kidney. We also have the ureter, then we have the urinary bladder. Study the diagram below. So in this case, you can see we have a diagram here where we have a fractionating column, we have a thermometer, we have a Lebesgue condenser, we have water in, water out, coke, then we have source of heat, we have a mixture of ethanol and water, and this liquid here. Then now the question is, the diagram above represents a method of separating a mixture. The method is known as, now in this case, since we have this fractionating column, this is what we call fractional distillation. Distillation is fractional distillation because it has a fractionating column which contains beads, which allows a liquid whose boiling point has not been reached to cool and come back into the flask until its boiling point is reached. Then it has a Lebesgue condenser. So in this case, fractional distillation is different from simple distillation because simple distillation does not have a fractionating column. And then the second question, the method is used to separate. This method is used to separate what we call miscible liquids. Miscible liquids, these are liquids which when you mix them, they form a uniform layer. So you cannot use a separating funnel to separate them. The opposite of miscible is immiscible. Immiscible, they form distinct layers which you can separate using a separating funnel. But in this case, these are miscible liquids which have close but different boiling points. Then C, when separating a mixture using the method above, dash of the liquid is considered. In this case, you consider the boiling point. You consider the boiling point of the liquids, and this boiling point should be close but different. Close but different. Then question D, when separating the mixture of ethanol and water, dash will be collected first. So in this case, the one which will be collected first should have a low boiling point, and then the one which will be collected last should have a high boiling point. So in this case, between water and ethanol has a boiling point of 78 Celsius degree, while water has a boiling point of 100 Celsius degree. So in this case, ethanol with a low boiling point will be collected first because it has low boiling point than water, because it has low boiling point than water. So in this case, the one which will be collected first is the one with a low boiling point, and in our case it's ethanol.